Okay, well, I went through all the different video formats that I own, except I didn't really do 8mm of film because I already did that before, so this is the last video of this series. So this time I decided I'm just going to show, when you own like movies on different formats, you tend to own the same movie again and again. So I just want to show some of the movies that I own a lot of, and this is Dracula, for example. This is the beta tape of Dracula, which you've already seen. Right here we got the VHS copy of Dracula, and right here we have the DVD version, and this is the Laserdisc. Now, when you own the same movie again and again, you start to notice some certain things that are different. And one of the things about Dracula is that originally there were some sound effects which they cut out in some of the earlier versions. Like there's a scene where Dracula throws Renfield down a staircase, and actually that's the clip right there. He throws him down the stairs, and you hear him screaming. Like right before he throws him, he's strangling him, and on that shot where he's strangling him, they cut out the screams because I guess they thought it was too disturbing or whatever. And there's also a part at the end where Dracula's being staked through the heart, which is off camera, but there was also some screaming from Dracula at that part, which they also cut out. But these versions, the VHS and the Laserdisc, I assume the Laserdisc, I have not actually watched it yet, still in the shrink wrap. But on these versions, I know the VHS for a fact, they put the screams back in, so this is like a fully restored version. But on the DVD, they left them out still. So it just goes to show that certain things, never throw away your VHS copies because there's always something that they don't include on the DVD. I like the covers on both of these. It's cool to see the Laserdisc because you start to see more of the picture. Basically, it's almost the same size. Like look at that. Yeah, it's like he's got a tiny head. It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, which is my #1 favorite film of all time. And that's hard to say. It's very hard to pick a favorite film. King Kong's pretty close, but Mad, Mad World wins by a hair. This is the beta tape right here. Now, this is a very long movie, so that's why it's on 2 tapes. It's kind of interesting. You can see the runtime for each individual one. Right there, they kind of just put a little label over it. So that's the beta tape. I don't really like the cover on the beta. I mean, what is this supposed to be? Like, the world is bandaged on some guy's head and people are coming out of it? What the hell? Okay, so, I like this cover, though. I think this is very cool. It's very tasteful. It's got the golden MGM thing on the top. Cool artwork right there with all the characters in it. So that's very cool, and of course it's still two tapes, and they're packaged together. This is another VHS version of it, which this is a later version. I don't like the cover as much on this one. It's just all the characters' faces, which, I mean, it's okay. Sometimes you notice that the runtime is different. Like this one's 3 hours 2 minutes, whereas I think the earlier VHS tape is 3 hours and 8 minutes. So the movie's always had different run times as it's gone on. In fact, the DVD is the shortest of all, 2 hours and 41 minutes, which I actually think helps this movie because it is very long and most of it happens in real time. Like the whole movie takes course over one single day, and which is what I think is really cool about it. Here's the Laserdisc, and the Laserdisc is just gorgeous. I mean, look at that. It's got the, it's similar to that one VHS copy we're just looking at. Yeah, it's just really cool, I think. And when you open it up, you got like all these pictures and stuff. Yeah, it's really cool, and you can imagine how long this must be. This is on like, oh man, this must be, well, I think it's 3 discs, and 6 sides total. So you'd have to get up a lot of times during the movie to, swap the discs. Oh, and I almost completely forgot the CED version. The CED version comes in 2. And again, the artwork is different than the rest. Oh, and also I have another DVD version of it right here. This one is actually newer than the other DVD. They're both the same exact movie, like the same cut, but the bonus features were taken off for the newer DVD. It only goes to show that some DVD editions don't get better, they only get worse. And that is really stupid. Oh, and at last we have the vinyl record. Yes, the soundtrack album. And this album has one of the greatest lyrics of all time.
I know it may sound jerky, but in Turkey, who eats turkey?
Yes, they just said that. And now for the #1 movie that I own the most copies of is King Kong. We'll start with the beta version. Now this is actually a VHS cover. See, VHS? But the movie inside of it is beta. I'll show you. There you go. That's beta. And now we have the VHS copy. There were tons of VHS versions of King Kong. This is actually the color version, which is funny. Back in the 80s when they put this on TV and they colorized it, which looked really artificial, by the way. It was a very weird looking color. Kong was kind of like a weird kind of sepia tone. But I showed a lot of my friends the movie, which they weren't really interested, but I was trying to force them to watch King Kong. And I wanted them to see it the way it was originally made, so I turned the color down on TV, so it was in black and white. And halfway through the movie, they realized what was going on, and they turned the color up, and they were like, "Hey, why didn't you tell us this was in color? We're watching in black and white." I mean, some people hate black and white movies. And if you push Kong's chest, he roars, and it doesn't work anymore. I swear to God, it was working right before I did this video. So, I don't know, let's take a look at it here. Yes, this is like the speaker, and you push his chest, and those are the batteries, I guess. So it's really just dead. I don't know, maybe one day if I can get new batteries for it, Kong will roar again. This is the DVD version, which is the box set. This is Kong, Son of Kong, Mighty Joe Young, and King Kong has a second disc on it, which has a documentary about the making of the film, which is one of the best documentaries about filmmaking I've ever seen. It just blows your mind. Highly recommend the DVD. This is the Laserdisc version of Kong, which has a really cool cover. It's always funny how he's so much bigger than the buildings and some of the artwork and the covers. But really cool looking Laserdisc. And then of course we have the CED, which you've already seen. What are these buildings like made of chocolate? So that's the CED. And then the craziest of all, this is King Kong on 16mm film. Believe it or not, I have 2 copies of this on film. The other one was really shitty, so this one's a better print, and it's on 3 reels. Actually, it was on 2 reels, but I spliced it onto 3 because the reels were so heavy it was slowing down the projector, and it was actually, the image was jittering a lot. So I fixed that. I put it on 3. And the craziest thing of all I did with this film, this was a huge project. It took me all day and all night. What I did with this was I spliced in the missing scenes. Originally in King Kong there was a scene where he's undressing Ann Darrow. There's a scene where he's putting people in his mouth and stomping on them. There's a scene where he throws a random girl from a building, and I guess they thought those scenes were too disturbing or too, offensive back then. They cut them out, and later it's been restored on the DVDs and everything. It's on the VHS copies, and usually if it's on TV, the missing scenes are in them. But on film, usually it's pretty hard to find those missing scenes. So I got an outtake reel that was all of the missing scenes in the movie, and I actually went by hand frame by frame and spliced back in all those missing scenes. So it's sort of like, literally, like I rewrote history. So this is a complete version of King Kong now, completely intact. And it was very complicated to do. I had to have a DVD running at the same time while I was running the film, and whenever I noticed something different, I went in and fixed it. And I didn't realize how many things were actually cut from the movie. There's a scene where a brontosaurus is coming out of the water, and it's like it's picking up people in his mouth and like throwing them, and there were little shots from that were trimmed or cut out altogether, and I put them all back in. And it was kind of like I started to really learn this movie. So now I have King Kong like shot for shot in my head. It's crazy. And that's what happens sometimes when there's a movie you like a lot, you own it many formats, and you start to learn about all the little differences in it and everything. So that's what happens. So there's the movies that I own a lot. There's all the formats I have. Hope you enjoyed these videos, and have a good day.